Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Hometown Musician Spotlight, coming from the Arcada Theater of St. Charles. And I can't believe it, but I'm here with Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake fame, as well as some other bands. Joel, thanks for being here.
Hey,
Really
thanks for having me.
appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Joel, you're obviously one of Chicagoland's, native sons. And where'd you grow up, and where'd you go to school?
I grew up in Orland Park, so I went to High Point Elementary, Orland Junior High. My first 2 years of high school were Carl Sandburg, and then I transferred to Amos Alonzo Stagg. My family moved from Orland to Hickory Hills at that point in time.
Yeah.
Even Moraine Valley.
You come from a musical household, right? Your mom and dad are both musicians?
Yeah, both classical musicians, so they had me going early, and I caught the rock and roll bug really when Back in Black came out.
Okay.
And saw Angus Young on MTV in the early days of MTV, and decided I wanted to be him, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to be like a foot taller than him and all that, but it worked out all right for me.
Yeah, I remember hearing you say once at 11 years old you were faced with that choice with which piece of finely crafted wood you were going to wield, a guitar or a baseball bat, and it turned out to be the guitar.
Yeah, well, the baseball thing for me as a kid was real, but it was more pitching. I was a really good pitcher when I was a kid. I obsessed on that, and then what happened is all the other kids kind of grew before me, and they started hitting my pitching. And it wasn't as much fun when I wasn't whiffing everybody, because when I was a really young kid, I was dynamite at it. And then right around that same time was when I had guitar, and that just kind of became my new obsession.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I spent all my time doing it.
Yeah, in those formative years, we'll call it, in between high school and joining Night Ranger, what were some of your favorite things about Chicagoland? I mean, some of your favorite clubs, some of your favorite musicians that you collaborated with?
I mean, my story is really rooted from here. Everything that became of my career, I really owe to this area. I eventually I was teaching a lot of lessons at a couple stores, but mainly pro-am music in Darien. I was teaching 70 students a week, and I would gig with my bands around the bar scene and really the Southwest burbs more than the city or anything at that point in time. But then I eventually kind of landed in Kathy Richardson's band, and that was really kind of my first local success here in Chicago, like playing around with her band. She had a great draw, great material, and so that was a nice break. And then kind of coinciding with that, because I was in her band, was Jim Peterick, who obviously Kathy had a rapport with, bringing me in to do some recording and putting me in the house band for his World Stage concerts, which are, I think he's still pretty much doing them annually around here, but essentially it was Jim with a band, and then he would have guests come out, and they would sing their hits or even some new material on occasion. But that allowed me, even as a local musician here, to start playing with Don Barnes from 38 Special, and Rick Emmett from Triumph, and Kip Winger, and Alan Parsons, and I mean, it's a very long list of like cool people that I got to play with, and one of those people was Kelly Kagi from Night Ranger, who was like a part of it. Probably, I would say Kelly and I knew each other for about 7 years of doing that prior to my having an opportunity to play with Night Ranger. I think it was really more or less a situation where they had parted ways with Jeff Watson, and Red Beach, of all people, was doing the gig in the interim, and he needed to miss a show to play with Winger. And I had just said to Kelly that night after World Stage, saying, you should have called me, man. You should have called me. I could do the 8-finger thing, and I play a gold top Les Paul. I'd be good in your band. And so it was really only a few days later that they called and asked if I would be into doing that, because I think the main sell was that Kelly was witnessing me coming in for these Jim Peterick shows from New York. I already lived in New York at the time, just kind of getting off the plane and playing 35 songs or whatever in a concert without rehearsing. So his big sell on those guys is, this guy will just know it all. He does his homework. We wanted to rehearse with him. We'll be able to keep the show, which was a casino show in Michigan, and I forget the city offhand. But that was really my audition, more or less, for Night Ranger, was going and playing that casino show with them. But Jim Peterick, in many ways, he is responsible for giving me my start. I always try and credit him with that, because had he not put me in his World Stage band, there probably would have been, at least the classic rock scene would have been very limited for me. I might have found my way to some other stuff. But, that's really what launched me into Night Ranger. And Kelly was kind of checking me out for a little bit before getting that official offer with Scrap Metal, which was Kelly playing with Mark Slaughter, who's playing here tonight in the theater. So Mark and I go a ways back, and the Nelson Twins, who I adore and great friends of mine. So, and even ended up doing some Nelson shows with them on occasion, filling in on guitar and whatnot. So
it was 1977. I finally got enough money to get a turntable and some speakers, and I was at the Gold Blast department store, South Chicago. And in the bargain pile for $1.99 was a Deep Purple album. I took it home, put it on, and I said, "Who is this singing?" The album. We just come taste the band.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I also happened to whip out the. Well, that was my first taste of David. Hearing him. How did you? And I've heard you speak very fondly of David Coverdale. How did you come to meet Dave, and how did he end up inviting you to the band?
I mean, the first time I met David face to face was Night Ranger opening for Whitesnake. We shared a bill. So we met briefly backstage, which there was a lot of weird little coincidences. That was when Jack first spoke with Doug about doing Revolution Saints, which now I'm doing these days with Dean instead of Doug, as Doug kind of opted out of the project. It was just kind of meeting David face to face for the first time that night, but then it was, I'm trying to think about how long after that. It was maybe about a year after that Doug left the band, and I just kind of hopped on it and tried to get an audition and got myself in there. And David is great guy, man. I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about David. We kind of just hit it off from the jump. I mean, I sat down and before we played any music or anything on the audition, if you will, I think he just wanted to get a read on my personality, and we just talked for an hour about, I guess anything, but also kind of like what it would be that we'd be looking for. And, David, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I think the stage of the game that he was at, just looking for professionals, people to show up and also just be courteous and be professional. It's really, obviously you have to have the ability to play the music, but a lot of it has to deal with being grateful that you're there and not being a jaded guy who's like, about the gig, So positive energy. Yeah. That's what David's great at. Yeah. He's a real positive up guy, and he likes it that way. And we just did well. I was, in particular, in that period of time, I was really in that mode in my life. I mean, now that I'm getting a little bit older, I can hit my jaded spots, but I did really well with him because it was just like I was radiating a lot of positive energy, I feel like, and we just hit it off, and then we went down and did some jamming to the Purple album, what they were working on. Yes. And then we ate dinner. Reb was the only other band member there, Reb Beach, and so Reb and I, obviously we knew each other already from me filling in for him in Night Ranger, but also Night Ranger and Winger sharing multiple bills. So that worked out nicely, that I had a rapport with Reb and knew him coming in. Nothing but great things to say about the experience at Whitesnake. David did everything that he said he would do coming in, and great guy. I wish him absolutely nothing but the best. Great guy.
I know we have limited time. I'm going to make a few more questions, but in regards to David Coverdale, it was an interesting story about the year he was injured and couldn't tour, and he gave your band members an opportunity to kind of branch out into some new projects, and you landed in a pretty cool situation there with Cher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to speak to another cool thing about David was he's not one of these guys that would mind if, hey, we're not touring at that time. If there was another gig or something like that, he was like, get out, go play. Yeah. I want you to be out and better yourself and have fun and enjoy life. And so, some bands not really like that. They like you to kind of hang in and not be out with other stuff. Yeah. David was all about, letting you become a better musician and remain active, and you kind of need to with bands. If you're not going to be out 10 months out of the year, you got to stay sharp. Yeah. So as you said, he said he was going to take the year off, so I ended up just texting a bunch of friends like, hey, I don't really need a new gig. I'm just looking to fill in. If anybody knows anybody who needs a sub this year. And my friend Justin Derrico, who plays at Pink and also on the Voice, shared the Voice guitar duties with Dave Berry, Cher's guitarist, and he needed a sub, and he was asking Justin, like, man, I need a sub for Cher, who do you think? And Justin had just got my text and said, I know it's going to sound weird, but how about Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake? And so once I got Dave on the phone to explain, like, look, I do understand how to play a whole lot of different styles, and I will play it exactly like you when I come in, don't worry. Yeah. I'm not going to just come in and be some 80s shred guy on it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a couple moments in that show when you would step out with Cher when you played Turn Back Time, or found someone that kind of called for that stage presence, actually more than the shredding.
Yeah.
Kind of just like the 80s look.
Yeah.
So as it turned out, she really enjoyed that. Dave was really getting busier and busier with the voice. So what looked like it was going to be a few shows kind of turned into a few years there, and then even recently when she made some special appearances like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, she asked me to do that with her, which I was incredibly honored to be a part of that. And then the SNL 50 Homecoming concert, getting to do that, and that sort of was shortly after me getting asked to be like a guest musician on Dancing with the Stars for their hair metal episode. So I was kind of like, man, I'm 3 network television appearances here in like a matter of 5 months. I sort of feel like Mr. Network TV there for a second. But you know, that's the nature of the business. You know, these kind of super high profile gigs, and then the next day you're back home, you know, teaching a remote lesson in front of the laptop, going, "Here's how a power chord goes." But no, great things to say about Cher too. You know, top pro. We do something like that. It's a pop situation where there's dancers and a bigger company. It's more to do with dealing with the music director and the other musicians than dealing with Cher. But any interactions were very positive, and she was very professional.
Awesome. Well, my last question, because I know you need to go. You're also part of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but on the musical ladder of, the ladder of musical inspirations for you, let's say, what is there another rung that you still want to reach for? That another aspect that.
I don't really operate that way. I kind of operate in a world of day to day, like making sure I'm moving forward every day musically, one way or another. So if I don't do it daily, suddenly like you lose that. So I've never been a guy to say in a year I want to be here, or in 2 years I want to be here. I've been a guy that's like, let's fill up the schedule and try and hit everything out of the park and see what sticks. You know, the thing about the music business is some things will stick and some things will happen that you would never expect. We talked about Cher, and the other being the Rock of Ages show on Broadway. Like, never in my life when I was a kid practicing Black Sabbath riffs that I think someday I'm going to make it to Broadway. But that ended up being a really big break for me in my life, being able to do that 8 shows a week while I was touring with Night Ranger and Trans-Siberian Orchestra for part of that as well.